Hi there, I'm Lorene, and my sister Carla didn't just lie to take my job. She forged documents, convinced my board I was unstable, and tried to erase me. But what she never saw coming was that I already owned the company she thought she stole. Why does betrayal hit hardest when it's dressed as family love? Have you ever been blindsided by someone you trusted most? What time are you listening to this, and where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. I'd really love to know. The HR email hit my inbox at 6:17 a.m. Formal complaint received, the subject line read, as if it were just another morning memo. I blinked twice, sipping lukewarm coffee from yesterday's mug, then clicked. The words were sterile, clinical, crafted by someone trained in legal insulation, but the chill that crept down my spine had nothing to do with protocol, fraud, credential forgery, financial misconduct. I let the words hover, refusing to absorb them fully. My name was there, bold and isolated. Lorene Carter. I didn't flinch, but my pulse quickened like it was racing ahead of me, sensing what I wouldn't admit aloud. Someone had finally made a move. Outside, morning light crawled across the hardwood floor of my Raleigh townhouse. Birds chirped like nothing had fractured. I stood up, walked to the window, and tried to breathe. "This has Carla's fingerprints," I murmured, almost involuntarily. She'd been quiet. Too quiet. And Carla wasn't the type to let old grudges fade. I scrolled down. HR had attached a formal document, dense, vague, strategically loaded. Allegations built on suggestion, not proof. And then came the clincher. A former colleague from a prior project has provided supporting information. No name. Just a ghost. 16 years ago, my father told me, even shadows find ways to speak louder than substance. At the time, I thought he meant enemies, but maybe he was talking about family. I tapped the file directory on my laptop, scanning my credentials, degree records, tax filings, all verified, all untouched. I ran through every presentation I'd led, every expense report I'd filed, every signature I'd stamped. Clean. But the complaint referenced details, specific phrasing I'd only used in internal team calls. Things not publicly documented, things someone would only know if they'd been inside the circle, or once pretended to be. HR had already brought in outside legal counsel. Standard process, they claimed on the call that followed, but I caught the shift in their tone. Something had landed with weight, and it wasn't just the complaint. It was the corroboration. I closed my laptop and walked into the kitchen. The silence there felt curated, like someone had erased the sound from the air. I poured fresh coffee, trying to remember every person who'd ever sat on a project with me, every handshake that had ended cold. Then my stomach clenched, 2 weeks ago. Carla had visited the office. It was casual, or so she said. "Just dropping by, love to see your space." She walked the halls like a guest, but her eyes scanned the layout like she owned it. I brushed it off as performative, but now I couldn't unsee it. The way she lingered by the data wall, the questions about internal protocols, framed as curiosity. I had even joked, "You're not here to steal my job, are you?" She'd laughed. "Sweetheart, I don't want your job. I want you to realize it never should have been yours." A new ping snapped me back, a single line from HR. We received corroboration from a verified third party. I forwarded it to my old friend Nate in IT. "Run the metadata," I typed. "Trace the IP." He called me back less than an hour later. It was submitted from an IP registered at Creative Commons Workspace, that place Carla brags about, her inspiration cave. I didn't respond. I just stared at the wall where my MBA diploma hung, next to a framed article that once called me the clean energy visionary. "You came for the crown, Carla," I whispered. "Just don't forget who built the throne." The doors to the 10th floor conference wing parted with their usual hiss, but something was off. The energy. The way people moved like they were rehearsing lines they hadn't learned well enough. Dana approached with a pale face and a folder clutched to her chest. "You're late," she whispered. "Someone already started the meeting." That didn't make sense. This was my meeting. I opened my mouth to question her, but Dana only gestured toward the glass-walled boardroom behind her. I stepped forward, heels clicking louder than normal, as if they were the only thing tethering me to gravity. And then I saw her. Carla stood at the head of the table, a wide smile cutting across her face like a blade disguised in velvet. She wore a navy blazer I once owned and had forgotten I lent her. Her hands moved with fluidity, like a conductor directing a room full of musicians she neither respected nor needed. "We're exploring a new structure," she said, pointing at a projected slide that said nothing and promised everything. "With insights from someone who's seen the business from both the inside and, well, let's just say, from a very personal angle." Some nodded. Others looked like they wanted to. No one spoke. I didn't sit. I didn't breathe. I watched her deliver half-truths like gospel. Family connection, insider intuition, transitional strategy. It was all theater, but the cast had already bowed. Carla met my eyes once, only briefly, and offered a look that wasn't gloating. It was worse. It was familiarity, like she'd already factored me out of the equation. Hector handed me a document under the table. His fingers trembled. "Internal confirmation," it read. "Strategic advisor, effective immediately." Signed, initialed. His signature curled into itself like it had been forged by fear. I stared at Hector. He couldn't hold it. "She came to me with—" he started, but I lifted my hand. The conference table, once a place where my ideas shaped national policy on clean tech deployment, now felt alien. Carla had infiltrated the one place I'd built from nothing but equity, sleepless nights, and buried bitterness. 16 years ago, Carla talked her way into a fellowship I was supposed to get. She'd cried in front of the selection board, said our father favored me, that I made her feel invisible. It worked. Back then, I walked away. Back then, I thought being right was enough. Today, I held the document like it burned. Today, I didn't walk away. "I'd like a moment with my team," I said. Carla stepped back with exaggerated grace. "Of course, but let's keep it brief. I have a strategy call in 30. She winked at Dana. Dana flinched. When the door shut, I turned to Hector. "She used your fear." He rubbed his face, suddenly older than yesterday. "Legal's been breathing down our necks. I didn't think she'd—" "You didn't think at all." My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. He gestured helplessly. "The board's been quiet. You've been quiet." "Quiet isn't absent." She said she was helping. His words fell flat, lifeless. I moved to the window. The city looked smaller from up here, less like a victory and more like a vantage point for betrayal. "That seat was mine," I said. "Not to him, not really. To the glass, to the truth." Then I opened the bottom drawer of my filing cabinet and pulled out a leather-bound folder, my copy of the original board charter. The one no one else remembered existed. Time to remind them who wrote the rules. The text came late Friday night, just a vague line from Mom. "We're celebrating Carla's leadership journey tomorrow. Hope you can make it." There was no mention of my award, or the ceremony I'd missed her at because, apparently, barbecue took priority over a federal stage. I drove to Chapel Hill anyway, not to be embraced, just to see how far the erasure had gone this time. The backyard hadn't changed. Same uneven stones around the grill, same chipped bird bath. But the energy had. It pulsed with polite laughter, the clink of glasses, and the smug comfort of collective amnesia. I parked down the street. No grand entrance, just a quiet approach through the side gate. Carla stood under a string of fairy lights, holding court in a flowy cream dress like some reformed heiress of strategy. A poster-sized banner fluttered behind her, "In honor of our trailblazer, Carla Lynn." I nearly laughed. "Leadership is about courage," she said to the crowd. "Not hiding in roles, but showing up in storms." Someone cheered. Another uncle offered a raised glass. I stood in the shadows near the drink table, arms crossed. On a folding chair sat a copy of The Triangle Chronicle. I picked it up. The front page grinned back at me. Carla, chin high, holding a Golden Mock Award with a quote from Dad beside it. She's the family's only legacy. No mention of my innovation grant. No mention of me. 16 years ago, I won the state science fair. Built a prototype wind turbine from spare dishwasher parts and copper wire. Dad was supposed to drive me home, but he was across town cheering for Carla's regional cheer finals. He sent Mom with a half-eaten granola bar and a car that smelled like gym socks. I sat alone on the bleachers while the janitor swept around my trophy. It never really changed. It just became harder to pretend it would. You made it, Carla said now, appearing beside me. She smelled like champagne and entitlement. Didn't think you'd show. Or did you just need a reminder of who wins in the end? I tilted my head. Just wanted to see what delusion looks like when it's catered. Mom appeared like she'd rehearsed it. Let's not ruin the evening, girls. Everyone's here to celebrate. Celebrate what? I asked, not really to either of them. Carla shrugged. Presents, darling, not paperwork. I didn't stay for cake. As I made my way out, Aunt Georgia brushed my arm. We're proud of you too, sweetie, but maybe next year, huh? She smiled like it was sympathy. It felt more like spit. In the car, I sat for a long moment before starting the engine. My award certificate was still sealed in the glove box, untouched since Tuesday. I pulled it out, held it in my lap, and then returned it without opening it. Back home, I poured a glass of wine and opened my laptop. My fingers hovered before typing, "To whom it may concern, misrepresentation of role." The agenda packet was sitting neatly in my seat before I even entered the boardroom. Monday morning, 8:03 a.m. They didn't even wait for coffee to cool. My name was there, printed in bold under internal restructuring discussion. No one met my eyes. The document was surgical. Carla's proposal opened with flattery. My tireless efforts, my visionary leadership, followed by a knife in the next sentence. To avoid future burnout, she suggested, redistributing select responsibilities to optimize executive focus. In plain English, cut Lorene in half. Carla stood, crisp navy dress, flawless posture, eyes bright with performative concern. This isn't personal, she began. It's about sustainability. We all know leadership isn't a sprint, it's a relay. Several board members nodded. Kenneth cleared his throat. We've noticed signs, Lorene. Delayed response times, strained resources. It's not about capability, it's about bandwidth. I looked at Kenneth, once a reliable voice of reason. He couldn't even hold my gaze. Perhaps, he continued, we should consider a dual executive model. Carla could lead strategic innovation, while Lorene focuses on core operations. It plays to both strengths. The air in the room thickened. Split my role. Isolate me from the very programs I built from the ground up. Dress it in strategy, call it partnership, but I knew the subtext. Succession in slow motion. I studied Carla as she offered a tight smile, eyes wide in faux humility. I remembered the last company she tried to innovate, a solar app disaster that burned $500,000 in seed money and ended in litigation. But image is louder than history, and she'd learned to wield silence like gold. They don't want balance. They want a quiet replacement. I exhaled slowly. Efficiency should never come at the cost of integrity, I said, voice calm, clipped. Under my leadership, EvolveTrack has increased market share by 19%, improved retention by 14%, and attracted 3 rounds of clean tech funding. My bandwidth built that. Silence. Someone shifted in their seat. I stood. But if the concern is my visibility, consider me now fully visible. The meeting wrapped quickly after. No vote. Just polite dispersal, like a storm cloud that hadn't decided where to break yet. I followed Carla into the hallway. You've been preparing this too long to act surprised, I said. She didn't even flinch. I'm just trying to help. Some people need it and don't know how to ask. Keep pushing, I said. But don't say I didn't warn you. Back at my office, I opened my calendar and typed one line into a private invite. Private council review, emergency. Through the reflection on the dark glass, I saw myself, shoulders squared, lips tight, eyes clear. I hadn't just been cut. I had been challenged. The envelope was too stiff. It had the texture of something final. My assistant placed it on my desk like it might detonate. Certified mail. Legal. The letterhead belonged to our own board's legal counsel. My name appeared 4 times on the first page, each one flanked by phrases like whistleblower disclosure and abuse of authority. I didn't need to guess. Carla had just pulled her dirtiest move yet. Before I could finish reading, Dana burst in, tablet in hand, eyes wide. "You need to see this. Now." She tapped open a preview on an online media site. The headline was already gathering clicks. "The Fall of a Corporate Star. Lorene Whitmore under scrutiny." I scrolled, nausea crawling up my throat. The article was scheduled to go live in 3 hours. It quoted internal documents alleging embezzlement, coercive management, and falsified reporting. Every line dripped with Carla's rhythm, planted quotes, vague timelines, and anonymous sources. "She doesn't just lie," I said out loud. "She curates." 16 years ago, she'd submitted a copy of my senior thesis as her own in a university competition. When I brought it up, she smiled and blamed a TA for mixing up the files. I took the fall for poor academic coordination. She called it a misunderstanding. I called it the beginning. Now she was using the same blueprint, only this time she'd traded professors for publishers. I dialed my lawyer. "I need you and an external crisis strategist in my office in 20 minutes. "No statement," he said before I could speak. "We need to freeze the narrative, hit them with fact before they hit publish." I nodded and hung up. Then I sat still. Let the room breathe. My phone buzzed. A voicemail from my father. "Lorene, I just saw something's happening online. You need to think about the family. Step down quietly. All of this is getting ugly. For everyone." He didn't ask what was true. He didn't ask how I was. I stared out the window, fingers clenched on the armrest. She had him too. That night I used my old keycard. Carla never changed the locks. Her apartment smelled like over-scented candles and staged ambition. She looked up from her laptop, sipping wine. "Well, if it isn't the star of tomorrow's headlines. You've crossed the line." She tilted her head. "You always thought you could outwork everything. But image, dear sister, outruns merit every time." "Take it down," I said, "or I will take you down, completely." She smirked. "You've always played fair. That's your curse. Fair never wins." I left without another word. Back in my car, I opened my encrypted folder. There it was, screenshots, emails, timestamps, the digital fingerprints she left while crafting her little theater. I forwarded everything to my lawyer and PR team. Release everything if they publish that article. The war had begun, and this time I wasn't waiting to be struck. I walked into the boardroom like a shadow with a spine, dressed in black, every step sharpened by silence. The air was stiff, too clean, as if the walls themselves were bracing for impact. I laid the stack of evidence on the table like a loaded weapon and didn't smile. "I appreciate you all making time on short notice," I began. "Let's dispense with pretense." Slide 1. Document metadata showing alteration logs traced to Carla's credentials. Slide 2. A forged vendor contract with timestamps overlapping her login from the co-working space. Slide 3. Surveillance footage. Carla in my office, alone, the night the data breach occurred. Nobody interrupted. Then Carla scoffed. "This is ridiculous. You're twisting circumstantial data and blaming me for a mess your own staff created. Disgruntled employees are dangerous, Lorene. Maybe look inward." I didn't blink. "You forged financial authorizations in my name. That's not disgruntled. That's criminal." She rolled her eyes like it was theater. "Oh, come on, this question mark over a few files?" But the real twist wasn't her denial. It was the board. Mr. Hollis stood slowly. He had always been the diplomat, the steady hand. Now he folded his arms. "You've made your case, Ms. Whitmore. But may I ask, how long have you owned controlling interest in EvolveTrack under Whitmore Holdings, LLC? The room shifted. "You're using anonymous shell corporations," he continued, voice calm but cutting. "You've quietly installed yourself above every vote and vetoed every threat behind closed doors. If Carla is guilty of deception, what does that make you? I stood there, exposed not by lies, but by silence. I stayed quiet because the board wasn't ready for the truth. You still aren't. That's not leadership, Hollis said. That's manipulation. I turned to the rest. You're benefiting from my work while vilifying the shield I built to protect it. Ask yourselves, who profited more from my silence, me or you? No one answered. 16 years ago, I remembered my mentor whispering before my first venture pitch, "Power isn't what they see, it's what they can't trace back to you." I believed it, built around it, but now I realized I'd become a ghost with too much power to go unnoticed. Later, in the parking lot, Ashley found me standing still beneath a flickering light. "They're afraid of you now," she said. I glanced at her. "Good. They don't know what you'll do next." "Neither do I," said. "But I know what I won't do. Apologize for being smarter than the room." My phone buzzed. A call from an encrypted number. "She's trying to access one of your inactive accounts," my advisor said. "Want me to block her?" I stared at the city skyline, lights blinking like false promises. "No," I said. "Let her try." The city pulsed beneath my window like a body in cardiac arrest, lights blinking erratically, a rhythm offbeat. I stood with my arms crossed, listening to my attorney's voice outlining the next legal steps. Civil litigation, criminal referral, no mercy. I nodded, but inside I felt hollow. Power had never tasted this acidic. There was a knock I didn't answer. My assistant opened the door anyway, eyes wide. "Your mom's in the lobby. She's refusing to leave." Of course she was. Mom's voice pierced the hall before she even entered the room. "This isn't how we raised you. You don't air family laundry in the street." Her eyes were wet, but her jaw was steel. I led her into my office, shut the door. "You came here to protect her, not understand me." "She's your sister, Lorene. This isn't justice. It's vengeance." "No," I said evenly. "This is consequence. You just never taught her the difference." She paced. "The articles everywhere. Neighbors are calling. Your father can't sleep. He slept just fine when she stole from me. Lied. Manipulated." My voice stayed calm. "You didn't show up then." 16 years ago, I was 15, holding a $20 bill torn from my allowance. Carla had taken it. Mom had turned to me and said, "She's going through more. You're the strong one. Let it go." I never forgot that. Mom sat down, voice softening. "Please, don't destroy your sister over ambition." "This isn't ambition." I leaned forward. "It's survival." That night, I sat alone in my living room, lights off. My phone rang. "Dad." "I saw the news," he began. "You're making us look divided. Carla never wanted to hurt you. She just wanted to be seen." I held the phone like it burned. "And I didn't?" "You were always cold, Lorene. She just needed to feel important." I didn't hang up. I just stopped listening. I typed the email right after. Subject: full prosecution, no settlements. I hit send. Then I whispered to the dark, "They picked their daughter. I'll pick myself." Minutes later, my phone buzzed again. Breaking. Whitmore investigation tied to offshore shell companies. I stared at the headline. No surprise. She was going for blood now. "So that's your next move," I muttered. The boardroom was ice. No one smiled. Eyes darted like blades. At the far end of the table, Carla crossed her legs, fingers interlaced as if ready to collect her prize. The vote to remove me was scheduled in 20 minutes, and she was basking in her imagined coronation. She wore red. I walked in late, not because I needed the drama, but because silence has weight when it follows anticipation. I didn't apologize. I took my seat like I owned it, because I did. "I suggest we not waste time," I said, sliding a single folder to the center of the table. Carla's lips twitched. Still playing cryptic? The board deserves clarity. She gestured toward a manila envelope at her side. I've submitted final documentation proving Lorene has manipulated internal decisions through shadow partnerships and personal influence. There was a ripple of shock. One board member audibly gasped. Carla pushed her dossier forward, fingers theatrical. I let it sit there, untouched. Before any vote is cast, I said calmly, you should see this. Ashley passed out the ledgers I'd prepared. Original filings, ownership breakdowns, signed documentation linking Whitmore Enterprises' controlling shares to a blind trust managed by Trivan Holdings. Trivan, my holding company, my creation. One board member blinked. Another leaned forward. I saw the flicker. Recognition dawning like a sunrise no one expected. I've owned this company for the last 18 months, I said, voice steady. Silently, because leadership shouldn't be about theatrics. But today, we're beyond that. Carla froze. You're lying, she said, hoarse. I turned the next page. Legal documents, timestamps, bank transfers, all verified and notarized. While you were hijacking titles, I was securing equity. She stood, hand gripping the edge of the table. This was supposed to be mine. You didn't earn it. Dad funded your degree, Mom got you that first job. And you, I cut in, built nothing but fires I had to extinguish. Carla looked around. Her allies avoided her eyes now, shifting in their chairs like they felt the heat of her collapse. I won't remove you publicly, I said, but you're stepping down from all operational authority, effective immediately. Her chin lifted, desperation barely masked. You think stripping me quietly will make you noble? Number it will make me right. The room stayed silent as I stood. Let this be a lesson. Power isn't loud. It's precise. She stared, motionless. I turned and walked toward the exit. Then her voice, cold and cracking. This isn't over. I paused at the door, one hand on the frame. It never was. But now I hold the pen. She didn't knock. The glass door to my office creaked open as Carla stepped in, clutching a flash drive like it might burn her fingers. Her eyes were red but dry. She stood in front of my desk and didn't speak right away. Just looked at me like she was trying to find the right version of me to talk to, the sister, the adversary, the woman she failed to destroy. I won't take long, she said finally. Her voice was smaller than I remembered. You deserve the truth, even if it's too late. She placed the USB on my desk and walked out. I didn't touch it for hours. The city was dimming beyond the windows by the time I slid it into my laptop. I watched alone, my hand resting near the screen but not on it. The folder opened to subfolders, video logs, documents, a few voice memos. The first video began with her face in poor lighting, shot from her apartment. Her eyes were swollen, her voice ragged. I'm trying to rebuild something, like what she did. I've studied her strategies, talked to vendors, even hired the same consultant, but nothing sticks. The next clip showed her arguing with a contractor, clearly losing control. Another had her breaking down in a hotel lobby, whispering, I thought if I became her, I could be loved like her. I didn't cry, but I watched every second. When she returned the next morning, I was ready. I envied you, she said. Your control, your peace, your respect. I kept trying to beat you, because I didn't think I could be you. I studied her face for traces of the venom that once lived there. It was dulled now, replaced by something that looked almost like clarity. You kept trying to erase me, I said, but I was never your competition. You fought the version of me you invented. She didn't deny it. This isn't about a job or a company, I added, softer. It's about how you never learned to live without needing to be more loved than me. Carla reached across the desk. I know I can't fix what I did, but I want to stop running from it. I stared at her hand. Didn't take it. You lost the job you tried to steal, I said. I kept the company I never wanted to own. Funny how that works. She smiled barely. You're stronger than me. No, I said, picking up the USB. I'm just finished trying to prove otherwise. She nodded. I understand if you can't forgive me. I didn't say that, I replied. But forgiveness takes longer than an apology. She left without another word. That night, I placed the USB in a drawer labeled unfinished. I didn't lock it. The skyline blinked like it always did. Constant, cold, beautiful. Some things are better left unsent, but never unlearned. Sometimes healing doesn't look like reunion. Sometimes it's choosing peace over performance, silence over shouting, growth over proving yourself right. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that family can wound you in ways no stranger ever could. But you still get to choose how the story ends. Not every apology arrives in time. Not every betrayal gets justice. But dignity? Dignity is ours to reclaim, moment by moment, choice by choice. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you once loved to protect your peace? Or maybe you're still carrying the weight of someone else's expectations. Tell me in the comments, type 1 if this story touched your heart, or let me know where you're watching from. And if it didn't land for you, I'd love to hear why. If you found value in this story, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next one. Your story matters too, and maybe, just maybe, someone out there needs to hear it.